Now, see, bring me my box of cigarettes.
You what?
Never mind, I got. Hold on. Ain't nobody watching no way. Never mind.
I can give you both.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I just put it in. I can't believe that. I really put it in.
Okay. Who's watching? It's always somebody that pops up watching and they never say anything and I never know who it is. This is not a meeting. I just decided to go live because nobody normally watches. And I should be having a meeting, but I'm not doing the group. So I decided to get on and talk about, okay, I decided to get on and talk about my weekend in the mountains. It's funny because I called it and, oh, all right, let me step back. Like I just said, I should be conducting a meeting right now. I should be facilitating my weekly Her Empowerment group meeting. But unfortunately, I'm learning that you can only do but so much for people. And if they're not making the effort for themselves, then you got to pull back a little bit, by continuing to give my focus to the group and not just take the time to figure out what's going on with the business and make that my main focus instead of everybody in the group. It takes away from my progress. So, Her Empowerment still exists. Uh, I can still be contacted and I still interact with the Facebook group. But in regard to live meetings, face to face meetings, I don't know how that's going to pan out right now. It's really dependent upon the ladies and what they want to do. I say that to say it's upsetting because I enjoy the meetings, and I honestly think that a lot of the ladies that participate enjoy the meetings, but they got to work through whatever they have to work through. It's upsetting to me because I keep like my manifestations, they keep coming, they keep coming, they keep coming, and I'm big on being the example. And when I say I try and be the example, um, I try and practice what I preach. I do not recommend or advise anyone to do anything that I do not do, have not done. Um, so for me to put this together and the purpose to be to not only be the example, not say get your stuff out the oven, not only to be the example, but to assist other people with getting to that point in their lives that they want to get to, and also become the example to add to that ripple effect of positive change in your circle, in your community, in the world at large. So this trip, in my opinion, is more validation of how the law of attraction, how manifestation, how understanding the energy that you are and learning to utilize it really changes. You can start over, baby. It's okay.
No, I have cream cheese.
That's disgusting. Start over, please.
I mean, not.
Whatever it is, start over, please.
That's wasted.
Thank you.
It's wasted.
It's not. It's burnt, and I'm doing a live, so stop arguing and just do it. I appreciate you. Yeah. Validation to the point that if you do the work, if you are focused on your own elevation and contributing to the collective elevation, how easy your life becomes. And I say easy, but that doesn't mean that you do not have obstacles. You'll always be confronted with obstacles. But when you learn the art, when you learn to develop your skill, when you learn to live in the truth of who you really are, which is pure energy, having a spiritually physical experience, then there is nothing that can stop you. Um, Going back to the trip, this is something else that I manifested. Uh, I live in Newark. I grew up in New York. I lived in Harlem almost my whole life. I grew up close to 145th Street and Riverside Drive. So I was literally just a staircase away from the Hudson River. And I spent a lot of time by the river. And moving to Newark, I am nowhere near water. And I didn't realize how big an effect the water had on me. So I'm going to say maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, I really got this urge to get as close to the water as I could. And yeah, I just kept saying, I need to get to the water, get to the water. Another friend of mine who lives in this complex, she was going to take a trip to the water. So I had planned on going with her. She canceled her trip. And then Monday or Tuesday of last week, one of the people who participate actively on the Facebook group hit me up for guidance. And we were talking, and he was telling me that after our last session, he ended up going up to the mountain. And while we were speaking, he had his friend there, and we were all kind of conversing, even though it was through direct message. And his friend invited me up for the weekend. And once again, I stayed. I didn't know how it was going to happen, when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen. In my head, I had already resolved myself to the fact that I was going to have to hop on the train, even though I've been really trying to avoid public transportation. But I was going to have to hop on the PATH train and catch the subway and go uptown in Harlem just to get to the Hudson River. But I knew I needed to touch the water. So, needless to say, I got the invite, and this past weekend, I was able to make my trip up into the mountains. It was extra special for me because not only did it coincide with the full moon, but it coincided with the lunar eclipse that we had on Saturday night, I believe. No, Friday night was the eclipse. The full moon was Saturday night. But so just me being able to be at that elevation, one, to be that close to not only a body of water, but a river, which for me means a lot. I am not initiated into the culture, but I do deal with the Orishas. And one of the main ones that I take care of, I look out for, I love, I appreciate, and I work with is Oshun. And if you know anything about Oshun, you definitely know she watches over the rivers. So for me to be able to go into the mountains at this period of time and to give thanks, leave an offering, and be blessed by the water, to touch the water, to cleanse myself in the water, it was more than I could have hoped for. It was such a spiritual experience. It was like the whole time the animals were being used to communicate to me through spirit. And it was just beautiful. On the way up the mountain, there was a big thunderstorm. And even that was beautiful. I was a little nervous because I had never been to the mountains, one. Two, I had never been up in the mountains surrounded by trees in the middle of a thunderstorm that heavy with lightning and stuff. And I literally saw, like, within feet of me, a tree get hit by lightning and split down the middle and fall. And even in that moment, I just felt in awe and surrounded by such beauty. Like, I can't even describe the emotion. But I felt almost as though it was like I was going through, the rain was cleansing whatever muck I was bringing up off of me and leaving it down at the bottom of the mountain. So that was beautiful. We get to the mountain. We couldn't do much that evening, but the people who were hosting, uh, they were awesome. We had an awesome conversation, and It's not upsetting. I keep saying upsetting. Nothing upsets me. Anyway, it was so cool because it's not often that I get to interact with people who I can have conversations on the level that stimulates me. I'm usually the one doing the stimulation. So to sit with someone who is just as knowledgeable in certain aspects and even more knowledgeable in other aspects, to sit down and gain some of his insight and share and exchange that energy, it was just beautiful. To top it off, when I first arrived, I was greeted by what is it called? Why can't I think of the name of it? Oh, a salamander. And I found out that this particular salamander was an endangered species in that family. It was beautiful. It was so tiny. It was orange and black. And uh, the person that invited me picked it up and he put it in my hands and he just played with me from hand to hand. And when I tried to give him back, he wouldn't leave. Like, so I was like, I'm supposed to be here, right? I ended up that evening getting the opportunity to sleep out on the deck under the moon. Um, it was gorgeous. When I woke up the next morning, one of the first things that I saw was a deer, just like a couple of feet away, not bothering anything, not bothering me, just doing his own thing, minding his own business. I couldn't believe how blessed I was in that moment to be able to wake up and see the sunlight cracking through the trees and look to my right and have a deer that close to me and the smells and the sounds. It was just so pure and cleansing and beautiful. And I was in love. And who is this? Tammy, my love, I'm actually in the middle of doing a live. Can I call you right back? Yeah, I just wanted to check up on you, that's all. Oh, I'm good, baby. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so I got up the next day, I got myself together, and the funny thing is, I inadvertently fasted the whole weekend. I didn't even realize I was doing it. It was just like, yeah, it just happened. So the next day I get up and I decide I want to go for a walk. I go for this walk. I run into more deer, a whole family of deer. It's just greenery as far as the eye can see. All I can see is woods and trees, and there's chipmunks running and woodpeckers pecking, and I was in heaven. So I take my walk, I take a couple of pictures, I head back to the house, and the guys say they want to go to this natural spring. So you know I'm all for it because I love the water. So we get in the car and we drive to this spring, and it's a little frog, cutest little green frog ever. And I realized I look down and he's literally just sitting next to me, and he hops into the stream and looks back like, "Hey, what you doing? Come on!" And I put my hands in the stream and I washed off my arms and I drank some of the water, not in the stream, under the whatchamacallit, they had metal holes attached. So I put my hand and I drank some of the water like that. I didn't want to drink it directly out of the hole. But yeah, so that was beautiful. Then they said, let's go to another spot. And this spot is like now my favorite location on the face of the earth, you know. They took me to the river. You okay? Tranquilo. Good job. Okay, so they took me to the river, and the river is gorgeous. I posted a couple of pictures. If you're not on my Facebook group, please go and like the page or join the page, however it goes. But it's her group, H.E.R. group. And you can go over the, no, it's not even in the group. Wow. I just posted it to my regular page. So it's Her Empowerment. You can go to Her Empowerment and you can see some of the pictures. But they took me to the river, and it was just gorgeous. And uh, it was this big old rock kind of jutting out into the middle of the river. So I get on this rock and I sit down and I take my shoes off and I put my feet in the water and I cleanse my arms again, and I'm sitting there, and one of the guys is standing next to me, and I say, if a black butterfly appears right now At another time, I'll probably tell you what the symbology behind the black butterfly and me are. But I said, if a black butterfly appears now, then I know I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing. And a couple of seconds later, this yellow butterfly comes out of nowhere. And he kind of looks at me like, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. So the yellow butterfly is flying around abnormally close to us, almost as though it wanted to give us kisses on the face. And they're standing, I'm sitting, so it's down on me, and then it goes up and it flitters around them for a little bit. And we're all like, oh my God, this is kind of a little weird. And still talking and playing in the water. And then she appears, the black butterfly. And she comes close to me and she's in my face and she checks them out. And then she comes back to me and I kind of say, I knew it. I'm listening. I'm here. Just guide me. Let me know what it is you want me to do. And he looks at me like, wow, you called it. And this butterfly flies off. And then we look over towards the left of us in the distance, and we see the two of them, the yellow and the black one, kind of encircling each other. And we both say at the same time, yin and yang. And then we look at each other, you know? And when we look and make the comment, I notice off to the side, there's like I don't know if an alcove is the right word for it, but it's in the river and it was designed, well, I say design, nature design stuff. So nature designed it almost as if this is a spot that someone should go to if they wanted to pay respect, do something. It was like a little pool, like nature created this pool. And I looked at it and I felt like this spot was important to me. And I tried to figure out, is this just me looking for what I'm looking for, or am I actually receiving what I was seeking? And while I'm trying to process this in my head, he looks at the same spot and says, hey, doesn't that look like the river kind of made their own pool? Wait a minute. Why does it look like someone's sitting in it? Now, mind you, no one was there but us. So when he said that, I knew what he meant because he sees. He gets visuals also. And I smiled and I said, thank you for the confirmation. I was trying to figure it out. And he said, somebody was there. And I told him they haven't gotten there yet. When I get back, they'll be here. Right? So I knew that was the spot. I still didn't know what I was supposed to do. We decided we were going to leave. We started heading back through the woods up to the bridge that we had come from. And on the way out of the path, I saw the butterflies again. This time they fluttered close and then they flew off. I walked a little further and it's like they came back, fluttered again, and then flew off in the same direction. And I saw them. So I say, give me a second. And I followed them. And they took me under the bridge almost to this little spot that was just like full of grass, which was crazy because it was only like dry leaves and twigs. And if you've ever been to the woods, you know what that is like, right? So this one spot, for some reason, was just full of grass. It was all overgrown, but it was grass. Oh, let me step back for a second. One of the things that was just more clarification for me was when we originally got to the waters of the river and I sat down, the guy looks and he says, wait a minute, how are the waters so clear? They're not usually this clear. I've never seen the bottom of the riverbed before. And then he noticed that the waters had risen a little and they were higher than they normally had been. And he looked at me and he said, maybe the guy that invited me, maybe he was right. Maybe she did call you up here. So that just like this whole time I'm just in bliss, like I'm loved, I'm guided, I'm protected. So yeah, I go to this spot and I didn't know, like, I literally stood there for a good 5 minutes. Like, what are you trying to show me? What are you directing me to? Even in this moment, like, I can feel the energy from that spot kind of touch me. And I couldn't figure it out, but I knew I had to leave. So I left with plans. What's going on? I'm going to continue talking. It's saying, Nasir, you're still on the computer.
Yeah.
Please turn it off. I told you I was doing a live and I'm about to lose my connection. Okay, so yeah, we're on our way out of the area. I knew I had to get back to that spot. I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do, how I was supposed to do it. The next day was the 4th of July, and we had all planned to go back and just be in the moment, do some mindfulness exercises and meditate and all of that other stuff. We didn't really make it back the next day wasn't the 4th. That day that I went was the 4th. What's that? Yeah. So that evening, the guy who owned the property, he had invited some guests over with their kids. The person who invited me, he had his children with him. So we had planned on going down to the outskirts of the community where they were going to do this fireworks show. And we kind of just dawdled for the rest of the day. So we didn't get back to the river. That evening, I'll tell you this part, even though it's not part of the spiritual aspect, even though it could be, I just don't know, right? Anyway, we go down and we're like by this lake, and it's like this swampy lake, and it's pitch black. Mind you, we're in the middle of the woods on like this road, and everybody from the neighborhood came down to watch the show, and we're all like, yeah, we get it, festivities and all of this, but social distancing like at MF. So we drove a little further down the road. We weren't close to anyone. We kept to ourselves. But we got a good spot where we could see directly across the lake where they were launching the fireworks and stuff. Point is, they launched this one firework. I had never seen anything like this before in my life. I promise you, they don't sell this anywhere. You can tell that somebody sat in their garage, in their backyard, somewhere, and made this rocket, spaceship, firework, whatever the heck it was. They shot this shit up in the air. It went further than I have ever seen any firework go, even for like the Macy's 4th of July fireworks spectacular. I've never seen anything like this. And it literally looked like an asteroid or a comet. And it had this whistle to it. And we just kept watching it to the point that we watched it so long we were able to verbalize, well, exactly how long is it going to take to drop? And then it starts to descend, and we realize, oh shit, it's headed toward us. So it's not directly, it doesn't hit us directly, but I'm gonna give it maybe 10 feet. It was about 10 feet away, and we back up once it hits the ground, and we're waiting for the explosion. And it takes a second. It's not even fizzling. It's just like silent. And we're looking and waiting. And then boom, 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 boom. And all of these lights and colors and sparks come out of the middle of the woods, which is now dry and covered in dry leaves. And everyone was like, oh, whew. But I felt it. I knew it wasn't over. So I watched it for a little longer. I turned the flashlight on my phone on. I had no signal, so that was the only reason I had the phone on me, was for the flashlight. I turn the flashlight on and I shine it, and then I see one little fire beginning, two little fires beginning, and I say, it started a fire. One of the guys with us ran into the woods. I ran behind him because where are you going with no light? And he's like, just keep the light where I can see it. And he starts stomping out fires and embers, and I'm stomping out fires and embers, and I'm trying to hold the light, but I'm trying to get to these while he's getting to those, and hold the light over there for him and make sure I can see. It was definitely the most eventful 4th of July that I ever had. Needless to say, after that moment, we went back up the hill, up the mountain. So once again, I slept in the moonlight. I was bathed by the full moon. I was able to charge up a lot of my crystals. It was just a beautiful experience. On top of it, the next day before I left, I was able to go and get some things that I wanted. I wanted to leave an offering, just say thanks, to the spirits, to the universe, to the energies that be, for getting me this far, for always protecting me and guiding me, even at a point where I didn't even understand that I was being guided, But looking back now, I see the truth in just how real their protection was. So I definitely, before I left that space, wanted to just leave something to say thank you. I'm not going to go into what I did or what I left, but needless to say, I think the spirits are pleased. Um, so I was able to do what I needed to do. I got to touch the water. I bottled some spring water and brought it back with me. I bottled some of the river water and I brought that back with me. Um, and then even the descent back into the city it was a moment. It was definitely a moment. I would say I did get a lot of the clarification, and it's way more to the story I could probably tell you because, like, literally, the black butterfly followed me everywhere I went while I was up there, and yeah, it was just gorgeous. It was just gorgeous. But coming back down the mountain, we made a stop at this nursery, a plant nursery, and it was some of the most beautiful flowers I had seen. They had like beehives because they collected their just it was gorgeous. And while a group of us was doing one thing, some of us decided to take a trip into the woods real quick just to see what we could find. And we came to this clearing. If anybody watches this video, if you are a Twilight fan, think about the clearing that Bella and Edward sat in with all of the flowers, just lush and green and beautiful with the sun shining on it. And it was something close to that, but the field, the flowers, and the greenery were just no, it wasn't a little higher. It was way higher. Like you couldn't sit in this in this field. But we get to the field and we notice the flowers and just how gorgeous it is. And then we realize it's a butterfly field. And it's the most beautiful yellow and black. I hope you understood that. Butterflies everywhere, just flying through the flowers. And it was gorgeous. We get down the hill. I mean, we don't get down the hill. We get back in the car. We start heading back down the hill. And then we get notification that some of the different national nations, which you guys might call Native Americans or Indians, had gone up to Mount Rushmore to block whatever they were trying to do up there. And I was so overcome sitting in the back seat of the car. I was so overcome with emotion because I see it in a different way than most people probably see it. I see everything going on in the world right now from a slightly different perspective than a lot of people see it. And although it's a lot of chaos and turmoil, I am so pleased and I feel as though I could witness the activities that are taking place on the planet. It's almost as though the universe is really trying to course correct and right a lot of the wrongs. And as humans, as physical beings, we don't necessarily always understand what the benefit is and the things that we are. As I said earlier, yin and yang. You have to have that balance. It's through the chaos, it's through the ugly, it's through the turmoil that we are able to not only identify the sweetness in life, but really determine what directions we want to take individually. Um, and as upsetting as it is, and it definitely disturbs my spirit to see the conflict, because me being an empath, I feel it more than I see it. I try and stay away from the news and media. I try and keep updated on what's going on, but I don't watch it consistently. I'm very guarded with my energy. But I see the beauty in the chaos. I see the possibilities of positive change and growth, not just for the individual, not just for the country, but for the world at large, with the direction that things are taking. Uh, the people who have been oppressed, so to say, for such a long time are finally speaking up for themselves and trying to liberate themselves, and it's nothing more beautiful than someone stepping into their power, stepping into their full potential, taking advantage of who they recognizing even who they are. So I'm very excited, even though I'm very nervous at points for the things that are happening right now. But yeah, it hit me when I heard it. It hit me in a way that I can't even describe. Like my lineage stems from Iroquois on my mother's side. My great grandmother was full blooded Iroquois. So I guess the spirit touched me to see my people, so to speak, have had enough, and they want to do something to start reclaiming their identity and their land back. And it's not that we don't want to coexist, but we can't continue to allow people to push us out. And I say we, but I don't necessarily mean in the aspects that you see. I'm not talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm not talking about the political situation that's going on. I'm saying this very clearly right now to the individual that you are. If you are the type of person who allows people to take advantage, who puts everything and everyone before you because this is what you've taught has been right, it's detrimental, and it causes even more harm, as we can see, to the planet and the earth when it's happening in mass to a large group of people. So for me, I'm very proud and I'm very happy to see people stepping into the light, not waiting for someone to come and lead, because in our communities, that's been a very big issue that we have not dealt with. Everyone sits on their ass and they wait for people to come in and direct them. You have to be willing to be the change, you have to be willing to step into the forefront. People will follow you. Not everyone will, but the right ones will follow you. And if no one follows you, so fucking what? It has to be done, you know? So it makes me happy. It makes me proud. And it was a very emotional moment for me. And I just felt like that was spirit also speaking to me and saying, like, everything that you're doing, you're supposed to be doing, you're definitely moving in the right direction. You do have, speaking of me, you do have to maybe reevaluate and redirect your energy. Maybe I've been expending it in the wrong ways, in the wrong direction. So I still have a lot of clarifying to do, a lot of thinking to do. Like I said, the movement never stops. It's never over. I'm never giving up. I'm here for a reason. I understand I have a purpose. I'm here for you. But I really just wanted to oh, it's not over. Oh. It was a two-part what's wrong?
There's a huge ant.
Oh. There's a two-part it was a two how do I say this? I had to get a ride from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain and then change cars to get back into Newark. So when I get to the second car, it's the guy who invited me, he had his mom pick me up. And while we were up in the mountains, I did a tarot reading for him. And yeah, it was powerful. I can't go into it because it was his. But one of the things that I will say is one of the people, one of the energies that came through was his great grandmother, who was full blooded Cherokee. and she had her messages for him. So when I get to the bottom of the mountain and we meet up with his mom, she just so happens to have his grandmother, which is the energy who came to me. That's her daughter. And on the ride back to Newark, we were talking. I was talking to his mother. She was asking me questions and stuff, and his grandmother taps me on the shoulder from the back seat, and she hands me I'm going to show it to you. It brought me to tears. She hands me this piece of paper folded up like this. And I look, and she said, "You can open it, but don't lose it." And I open it up, and this is what it says. Can you see that? 1936 5-cent souvenir. Which she gave me. Can you see that? Can you see that? It's a 1936 buffalo head. So this is going with me everywhere. But it brought me to tears because it reminded me of my great-grandmother who collected buffalo heads. She collected coins, but she liked these buffalo heads. And yeah, so it brought me to tears. Of course, when I got out the car, I had to just thank her and hug her and love her and appreciate her for who she was, you know. But I had a friggin' awesome ass weekend. I've already said, not only am I trying to move up there, but until I'm able to move up there, I think I'm gonna take a trip up there like every 3 months if I can, just to shake all the ickiness of the city off of me, you know, release some stuff, rejuvenate, recharge, come back fresh. Since I do a lot of energy work and I work with a lot of individuals doing the counseling and the guidance and stuff, it gets overwhelming, and I can do certain things here to cleanse, but it was a totally different experience for me to be able to go up in the mountains, especially as high as I was. And I didn't understand just how high I was until we started that descent. Man, when you talk about decompression, I've never felt like, even in the plane, and I guess because the cabins are pressurized, it's not as bad, but what I felt, and it's crazy because as soon as I got home, like, it wasn't even an hour after I got home, I felt zapped. It felt almost like jet lag. I had to lay down. My head was a little heavy, so to speak. Yeah, but overall, I had a beautiful experience. I cannot wait to go back. I am super excited for my next journey. And since I am not doing the weekly meetings, at least for right now, I think I might just come to you guys like this. I love you. I appreciate you. I thank you. I am here for you. If ever you need me, you can reach me via email, kia.b@klbcoach.com. You can check out the website, www.klbcoach.com. You can find me on Facebook under Her Empowerment, or you can join the online group, h.e.r.group, also on Facebook. Yes, I am on, what is it called? Instagram. And you can find me under The Spiritual Advocate. If you want to see my Facebook page, that is also The Spiritual Advocate. If I see you, I love you. If I don't see you, I still love you. You stay blessed. You enjoy. Mwah.